Have yous ever looked on at all at the Umis and the Chaos Boys and their big stompy tin boys they can bring? Have you ever thought how zoggin' snazzy it would be to run some of your own, except even bigger and stompier and killier? What if I told yous lot that yous can have your own orky tin boy for yourself that can crump even harder than what the Humies can bring, and for cheaper? Then let me introduce you lads to the Gork and Morkanauts. Let's get into it. Listen up, lads. Welcome back to the Daily Crumper, and today we's going to be talking about the lovely Gorkanauts and Morkanauts of your typical Orky wars. The wonderful contraptions that the mech boys thought up when one day Gazgul took a look at them big Imperial and Chaos Knights stomping across the battlefields and said, "Oi, I'd like me some of them." So yes, as always, I'm gonna go over the units, about what it is that they do, including their recommended loadouts, give you some detachments on what these units shine in. There are a couple of list ideas as to how I'd run them on a tabletop, and then of course, we'll head on over into good old tabletop sim, and I'll show you how I deploy and then use these units on a table. So let's see how we can use these lads in action. So, first up, let's go over the good old Gorkanaut. For stats, it's got an 8-inch movement, 12 toughness, 3 up armor save with a 6 up invulnerability save, 20 wounds with a 7 up leadership, and 8 OC. Now, this is the stat line of what previously was known as what the Imperial and Chaos Knights was. Now, of course, when them tin boys of their armies got them new books, they got tweaked it around a little bit. Their toughness values went down, their wounds went up, a lot of things got jumbled around, as well as their points. So as before, the Gork and Morkanauts just had identical stats to these lads. Now, they're a bit tougher in certain ways and not tougher in other ways. Toughness 12 is very good. Makes it to where your typical anti-tank weaponry like las cannons are not going to wound you on 3s, they're going to wound you on 4s at best. Which is good. The 20 wounds means you can take a beating before you go down. The AOC means you's actually pretty zoggin' good at taking objectives away from other Gitz. The 8-inch move is probably the worst part about it, especially considering that it is such a large model on a big knight base, means that you're not going to be moving quite as quickly as your other Orky units, such as your trucks full of lads, or even if you just got boys on the ground. They's going to be a lot quicker because they can go through buildings, whereas yous can't. But being as yous a big knight type model, you have some rules that will help you out to help mitigate some of them things. So if we go over the abilities, we notice that it has Deadly Demise D6, so it blows up pretty big if it does end up blowing up. It's got the War Faction ability, so it gets all of your buffs from your normal army rules. Its first ability is Clanking Forward. Each time this model makes a normal, advance, or fallback move, it can move over enemy models, excluding monster and vehicle models, and terrain features that are 4 inches or less in height as if they were not there. So this rule is a rule that most knight type models have, and it's mainly just for a ease of play type interaction. Because again, since you're so zoggin' big, it's kind of hard for you to just play the model on the tabletop, so these rules kind of help you just not get bogged down by things like enemy models or terrain features. So what this means is if you have a cheap 5-man of Eldari or something run up right in front of your big old stompy mech to try and prevent it from moving, well, the Clanking Forward ability means you can just move over them models and not have to worry about being stuck where yous is by getting move blocked all the time. Now, of course, yous can still be move blocked, because even if those models are in front of you, yes, you can move over them, but you still have to be able to end your move outside of that 1 inch of enemy models because of the engagement rule. So with only an 8-inch move and a very large, wide base, you can still end up getting move blocked by a lot of enemy units if your opponent is being particularly cunning as to where they're going to put them Gitz. So be worried about that. And then the terrain features with 4 inches or less that you can move through doesn't matter as much as long as you typically stick with the G-Dub or even the WTC terrain formats. You'll find that most terrain features are not 4 inches or less in height. A lot of them are 5 or 6 inches tall. But if they are less than 4 inches, typically they're going to be in the 2-inch range, in which case the rule is that you can just move over them without having to worry about it anyways. So I find that typically the terrain features ability isn't really going to come up too much, but it's nice to have. And then its second rule is big and stompy. Each time this model makes a melee attack, if the wall is active for your army, add 1 to the hit roll. It's very nice, means that your Gorkanaut is going to be even more effective in melee when the wall is active. That will double up with the war's active ability to give you the +1 strength and attack in melee. So that helps your Gorkanaut crump even harder than it already does. If we look at its equipment, say this model is equipped with a Deathstorm Mega Shooter, 2 rocket launchers, a Scorcher, 2 twin big shooters, and the Claw of Gork as its main crumping melee weapon. There are no options as to what you can take or alternative weapons that you can take on the Gorkanaut when used buying this model. It just comes as is. So if we look at what it's got, its main gun is the Deathstorm Mega Shooter. It is rapid fire 10 with 20 shots at 36-inch range, meaning if you use at 18-inch range, you's getting 30 shots out of this gun. Hits on 5s, of course, since using Orc, strength 6, AP 1, 1 damage. So this is definitely meant to be a chaff / infantry sweeping type gun. Again, them 5 Eldari Gitz trying to prevent you from moving up the board, shoot them up with this thing. Your opponent's trying to fill the middle of the board with horde type units, lots of guardsmen, lots of small buggy Gitz, some of them scarab little bug things from the Tin Boy Necrons. Deathstorm Mega Shooter will clean them up right and proper. Then you've got 2 rocket launchers, which helps against your vehicles and heavy elite infantry type lads. 1 Scorcher just for the hell of it. Just a random D6 heavy flamer in there, 12 inches range. And then 2 twin big shooters for more anti-chaff clearing shots. Rapid fire 2, it's 3 shots, so again, 18-inch range, you're getting 5 shots with twin linked. You've got 2 of these lads, so 10 shots total at 18-inch range. Strength 5, AP 0, 1 damage. Not gonna kill too much, but more bullets is better than no bullets. Or sorry, Dagger. And then the melee weapon, of course. So, use being a big ol' stompy Git means you have a big ol' stompy weapon that allows you to both strike or sweep. You've got 2 different profiles. You pick one of them when you go to crump in melee. Start with the strike. These are your big smacks. You only got 5 attacks, but again, the wall can help you out with it. You hit on 3s. Again, big and stompy is going to give you the +1 to hit on the wall. Your strength 18, meaning use wounded everything all the way up to toughness 9 on 2s. You're wounding absolutely everything in the game on 3s at the worst. It's AP 3 and it is flat 6 damage. Meaning any failed saves that your opponent's gonna make means that they are taking heaps of damage, lads. But you have a small amount of attacks to compensate for the large amount of damage that you'd get through. So be wary going into them vehicles that got like 4-up invulns and whatnot. Like them Grey Knight Grandmasters and some of them other Gits. Or you could sweep. You get 15 attacks hitting on 3s at strength 8, AP 1, 2 damage. So really good at sweeping up things like Yumis and Space Marines. It's good that you have multiple options, because then that means that the Gorkanaut can charge into effectively whatever it wants and have an answer to kill him. It's got the damage rule, meaning just that if it only has 7 or less wounds remaining, it loses OC and it gets -1 to hit. That's a rule that most vehicles have, not the OC part, but a lot of vehicles, once they's wounded, they have -1 to be hit. That's just kind of a vehicle thing. But an important thing next is that Gorkanauts and Morkanauts are transports, in addition to being a big stompy tin boy. So that's a unique thing that the lads have over other armies. We can stuff our knights full of other Gitz. And we'll go in depth into this later in the video, but you'll see that that is one of the most important abilities that a big Git like this has, as to how we can fit into your typical Orky lists. Because again, we are a melee-centered, transport-heavy army. We want to take big melee squads, throw them in cheap transports, run them up the board, so that way they can properly deliver our big melee Gits. The Nauts, while as being the highest of premium of transports, are nonetheless transports to run your Gits. Because if we look over at the points cost, you see you get one model, one Gorkanaut, for 265 points. Now that's very expensive for a transport, if you're looking at just playing orcs like you normally would. But if you compare this to the Imperium Tin Boys and the Chaos Tin Boys, 265 is really zogging cheap, lads. Post Codex and post nerfs and all the other things that the other Tin Boys have suffered as of recent, the cheapest knight that they can take in their armies is like 355. I think I checked. One of the Chaos Knights is 355. That's the cheapest big knight that you can take on the market. So the Gorkanaut being a full 90 points cheaper than that means even just for the stat line you're getting with this thing, that's not bad at all, lads. Not bad at all. Alright, then next we'll go for the Morkanaut, which is the shootier cousin to the Gorkanaut. You'll see that most things are the same in terms of rules and stat lines for this. The only change in the stat line is that the Morkanaut has a 5-up invulnerable save instead of the 6-up that the Gorkanaut has, and that's because of the custom force field that the Morkanaut comes equipped with. In editions past, the custom force field used to be a bubble, so you could give multiple things in your army that were huddled around the Morkanaut a 5-up invuln save, but now it only affects the Morkanaut itself. But still, 5-up invuln save is quite literally twice as effective as a 6-up invuln, so that's very nice. It's got the same clanking forward rule, but instead of big and stompy, you've got big and shooty. So each time the model makes a ranged attack, if the walls are active for your army, add 1 to the hit roll for ranged attacks. And you'll see that the Morkanaut is equipped with the custom Mega Blaster, custom Mega Zapper, 2 rockets, 2 twin big shooters, and the Claw of Mork. And if we look over at its weapons here, so the custom Mega Blaster is kind of the nipple gun in the belly that it's got. It's hazardous, it's 24-inch range, 3 shots, hitting on 5s at strength 9, AP 2, D6 damage. So lower amount of shots, but higher damage. So again, going to be used against your elite infantry types that you're trying to shoot up, or you could even try and shoot it at some lighter vehicles. Custom Mega Zapper is its main weapon. It's got blast, it's also hazardous, 36-inch range, so pretty far. It's D6 plus 3 shots, strength, hitting on 5s, strength 10, AP 2, D6 damage. Again, good for killing vehicles and elite infantry. 2 rockets for more punch, and 2 twin big shooters to try and clear chaff. And then the Claw of Mork again has its both strike and sweep. This time the Claw of Mork's got lesser attacks all around than the Claw of Gork on the Gorkanaut. But again, the Gorkanaut is meant to be your melee unit versus the Morkanaut is meant to be your shooty unit. So even though the stat lines are still good, hitting on 3s, strength 18, AP 3, 6 flat damage, and then the sweep being strength 8, AP 1, 2 damage, same as a Gorkanaut. But it's not going to be hitting on that +1 because it doesn't have that big and stompy rule. And it's only got 4 attacks on the main swing instead of 5, and then 12 on the sweep instead of 15 on the Gorkanaut. So way less attacks across the board. Same damaged ability and the same transport rule. Can transport 12 Gitz, excluding Gazgul, and then Mega Armor Jump Pack units take up 2 models per lad. But then this Git is 280 points, so considerably pricier than your Gorkanaut by 15 points. So, important to note. So next up, we go over some detachments as to what I would use these lads in. First up, Dread Mob, of course. It's a whole detachment centered around our big, stompy lads, your Killer Cans, your Death Dreads, Gork and Morkanauts, and even a Stomper. The try that button stratagem to give lethals to your lads is very good, especially on the Gorkanaut, because it's got that large 30-shot gun. So even though that the Deathstorm Mega Shooter, again, is meant to kill smaller chaff-type units, if you give that thing lethals, well, now you can try and shoot at some heavier targets. Because with 30 dice, you've got a really good chance at rolling a good amount of 6s, which then transfer to lethals and therefore doing damage. Bigger shells for bigger Gitz and the Clanking Claws strats are both good for +1 damage, especially with large amounts of dice. Again, Gorkanaut throwing out 15 attacks with the sweep, 16 attacks if he's on the wall, hitting on 2s. The sweeps being 2 damage, Clanking Claws making it 3 damage. 3 damage sweeps. Really nice. Bigger shells for bigger Gitz, +1 damage. Give that Deathstorm Mega Shooter +1 damage, so now it's 30 shots at damage 2. Again with potentially lethals, now you're doing a lot of damage with that Gorkanaut, and even the Morkanaut too. The main issue with the Morkanaut is that its main anti-tank-esque weapons are only strength 9 and strength 10, but as we've discussed previously, vehicles in the game are typically going to be toughness 10, toughness 11, even toughness 12 or 13 sometimes, so giving the Morkanaut lethals will help punch up into them vehicle Gitz too. And the other detachment is, again, classic Warhorde. I have here that the knots act as dead-odd trucks for all of the melee units you want to bring. Touched on this a little bit before, but if you's interested in paying the premium of instead of taking a truck and upgrading it all the way up to a Gork or Morkanaut, then not only do you have a dead-odd transport to help move your melee Gitz up the board, but then, once the knots deposit your lads and have them run off and go crump some Gitz, now you've got a big stompy robot in the middle of the table that it in itself is also a big crumping Git that will do a lot of damage on its own. And that will just add to the threat saturation that you throw in the terms of pressure at your opponents, which is what orcs want to do all the zogging time. And then I just have Big Melee Walker loves the big melee detachment. This is mainly, again, talking about the Gorkanaut, because that is the one that I definitely lean towards in terms of which of the two is better. But again, think about that Gorkanaut, 15 to 16 sweeps on the wall, hitting on 2s, sustain hits off of Warhorde, give it crit 5s for a CP. It just adds all up to lots and lots of damage, lads. So I definitely would consider bringing something like this in Warhorde, especially if you're tired of the typical archetypes of just throwing everything in trucks like we've been used to for years now. So, on to the list ideas I'd like to throw at you lads. First one I cooked up is a Dread Mob list here. I've titled it Knights Who. The list comes to 1990 points. Our warlord is good old Zodrog Wartsnagger. He is leading his big pack of 22 Gretchen, and they are then followed up by 3 additional 11-man Gretchen squads. Dread Mob, of course, allows you to take a lot of Grot units because Gretchen become battle line in only that specific detachment. So he's running a bunch of Gretchen, as well as 1 pack of 5 Storm Boys to do some secondary game, But why do we have so many Gretchen? Well, that is because we are rocking the full 6-knot list. 3 Gorks, 3 Morks. Because at the price point of $265 for the Gork and $280 for the Mork, our big stompy knights are very cheap, lads. I can fit 6 of these lads and still have plenty of points left over. In my previous video when I was complaining about the Chaos Knights and how they can take 6 knights, now before the points update of course, but they could take 6 knights and still have points left over. Not a lot, but still some. Us orcs can take 6 knights and have lots of points left over. And with how the game works and how vehicles are just tougher by proxy and are very difficult to deal with if your army list isn't specifically able to combat large vehicles, then if you rock up with 6 knots, some armies just won't be able to deal with it. And then you've got the Gretchen to help screen, so that way your knots don't get charged right out the gate and or get stuck in your deployment zone because they don't have anywhere to move from being move blocked. Or you just use the Gretchen to try to farm yourself some CPs, have a bunch of OC on objectives, do some primary game, do some secondary game. That's what they're going to be here for, because you want them knots to be in the middle of the table, preferably even in your opponent's end of the table, crumping and shooting and decking as much as possible. Now, is this list good? No. Should you run this list? Yes. With an asterisk. If you have access to Tabletop Simulator like I do, I 100% say give this a spin. It's super zogging fun to run, but on the other hand, do not go out and spend all your hard-earned teeths on 6-knot models, because them Gitz are expensive, and we just need to be responsible lads, alright? But this was mainly made to show you lot just how much you can shove into an orc list. But next, on to a more interesting, little bit more serious list here. We got another Warhorde list. This is 2,000 points on the nose. We are leading it up with a Beast Boss, a War Boss, and those are only 2 characters. No Gazi this time, because we's taking as many points as we can, making us as lean as possible, so we have all them extra points left over for some knots. So, we's running 10 boys, 10 Beast Snagger boys, 1 11-pack of Gretchen, we have the 10-man commandos, 10 knobs, 5 storm boys, 2 6-packs of tank busters, 2 6-packs of breaker boys, 2 Morkanauts, and 2 trucks. We have the Beast Boss going to Beast Snagger boys, of course, the War Boss is going to go with the 10 knobs, of course, and we got transports enough for all these lads. The commandos to be able to infiltrate now with their new rule, storm boys to be in deep strike for secondaries, Gretchen to hold your backfield, boys to sticky objectives. But then with the 2 Morkanauts and the 2 trucks, you have options here. Both those transports can hold 12 Gitz, so you can do a combo of 1 pack of tank busters and 1 pack of breaker boys in a truck, or you can throw them in a Morkanaut, do that times 2, and then whatever leftover transports you have will take the 10 knobs of the War Boss, and then the last one will get the Beast Snagger boys with the Beast Boss. I think this is a legitimate list. It is a little low on units, just because you do have to pay for them Morkanauts. And as you can see here, a Morkanaut at 265 is a lot more expensive than a measly truck at 70. But what you's getting is a lot more impressive than just a normal truck. So a bit more on the elite side, at least more elite than I like personally. But if you were wanting to legitimately try to make a couple tin boys work, this is probably what I'd do it. Alright, so next I'd like to show you lads how I would deploy and then play this list on the table. As you can see, this is the Warhorde list that I just showed you, and we are deployed today on Mission P from the Tournament Companion, and this is on GW Layout 8. This is the changed 8, again from the recent Tournament Companion, where it's got these 2 little mini setups in here instead of the 4 little brick style from previously. Today's we playing Warhorde against the Blueberries, the Ultramarines of the Space Marine factions. How I was deployed is I've got me 5 Storm Boys in Deep Strike, and I've got my 4 transports, the 2 knots, and the 2 trucks full of all of these lads, the Breakers and Busters ×2, the Knob Pack, and the Big Beast Snagger Pack. And then over here on the table, I've got my 2 5-man commando squads infiltrating up the board. This squad here hoping to hop on the objective turn 1. This squad over here hoping to hold my natural expansion objective turn 1, again in case I get something that requires me to be there, like secure no man's land or cleanse. In the way back, we got some grots, stringing out to deny some real estate from my opponent and sticking on my home objective to give me some CPs. I've got 10 boys parked in there as well to be able to sticky this objective in case something bad happens to these grots at some point. And I've got transports nearby for these orcs to hopefully hot swap with some of the lads inside these transports. So what I'd probably do is in this truck here, I always got some breaker boys and some tank busters. So turn 1 here, let me just grab them real quick. What I do to stage these lads and also help utilize these boys way in the back, because we don't want to leave them in the back all game, of course. I would probably take the breaker boys out of the truck turn 1 and then run up, run up and end up somewhere in this corner as to not be shot by the opposing blueberries. Something like this. Get them bomb squeeze out of the way. Put some up there, be nice and hidden. Then the tank busters that are in here would probably get out and end up somewhere over in this corner here to be ready to jump out and shoot some unsuspecting Gitz that hop up into the midboard. Something like that. And then now that this truck is empty and has not moved yet, these boys here can advance their way over to the truck, hop inside it, and then now this truck can move 12 inches wherever they needs to go to get these boys somewhere in a more advantageous position. Perhaps it wants to move over here to be towed on to this objective for more OC, and perhaps maybe that lets these commandos then run up the midboard and stage inside this building to try and prevent the blueberries from charging into my objective. Or say we pull no prisoners or assassinate or something like that, and these commandos want to instead try coming up into full into the midboard and charge something of the blueberry Gitz. Or maybe they just want to charge just to try to take up real estate and lock the opposing Git into their deployment zone. Well, I guess they wouldn't be charging. They would just be advancing to screen a bit, so now these can't move up. So maybe that's what you'd do. Have this truck take the spot for them commandos, and even if the truck gets blown up on the blueberries turn, say they move one of these vehicles up here and shoot down the line into this truck and kill it, well now you got 10 boys in here, they would end up hopping out onto your natural expansion objective here, somewhere like that, and then unless they also get blown up in a blueberries turn, well then boom, you've got your natural expansion objective stickied as well as your home objective in that quick 1 to 2 turn succession. So that's what I do with the whole hot swap technique with transports. Now in terms of these knots, well, let's see what we're looking at here. The blueberries, they've got Combi Weapon Lieutenant in the midboard here. If we move up on him, he's probably going to reactive move behind these boxes. He's got 2 scout squads to be able to do some objectives and try to keep me off of him for a turn or 2. He's got a big old squad of Hellblasters here that are going to try to run up, kill a bunch of Gitz, and then when they die, hopefully shoot on death and kill more Gitz. One big old Redemptive Dreadnought there to be a big tanky Git and probably brawl with me in the midboard. They got big girly man there along with his lackey Manius. 10 intercessors with a bunch of bolt gun shots. 2 of these big scary Reaper tanks, which are really zogging good at punching through vehicles because they just get reroll everythings. and then just some normal blueberries in the back to hold their objective. So in a situation like this, I would probably turn 1, send these commandos up into the midboard. Again, whether to do an action or to just get early charges off, one of the two. This big ol' knot here would probably just take their place and stage up in the midboard, so that way next turn that the knobs that are inside this Gorkanaut can hop out and run up into the midboard, and then the Gorkanaut itself could then run up its 8 inches and charge whatever it is here in the midboard. Now this is not counting if it advances and charges off of the wall. This Gorkanaut here would either stay where it is and wait to see what the blueberries try to send up into the mid-table, or it would probably try to get, if it got a big enough advance, then it might move over here to try to help stage up as well. This truck back here that has more tank busters and breakers can just move up to the side of the board here, no problem. Don't have to worry about too much getting a line of sight on it. And yeah, you know what I mean? Just use the terrain to your advantage. Try to help screen, stage, and protect your Gitz whilst they move up into the table. Because remember, you can be as tanky as a big tin boy knight like the Gorkanauts. But if you get seen by one or even both of these Gladiator Reapers, along with Gilliman allowing everybody to get +1 to wound against you for the Oath of Moment, even something like a knight will die very, very quickly, lads. So you need to be able to hide these big Gitz. It's a little hard because they are so big, but there are ways to do it. And remember, these big Stompy Gitz also have that towering rule. So what that means is that with these big buildings, typically you cannot see through any of these. Like right now, this Gorkanaut cannot see this Combi Weapon Lieutenant because it's going through the terrain piece, of course. Now, if the Gorkanaut was on the other side of the terrain piece, obviously he could see him. But say you don't have the movement for that. Well, here's where the towering rule comes in. With towering units like Knights and Gorkanauts and whatnot, they have this rule where if they just tap and they're towed in, as they call it, to a piece of terrain, they effectively turn off the obscuring rule for that particular terrain piece. So now that this Gorkanaut has barely touched this piece of terrain here, now he can seize through it and shoot whatever might be over here, like in this case, the Combi Weapon Lieutenant. So that's how that works. So it just means if you don't have enough movement to get to where you need to go, or maybe there's just a lot of models on the other side of a terrain piece and you just physically do not have enough distance to fit on the other side where use Gitz are, well, you're not completely shit out of luck for the turn. You can at least, again, tow in, shoot out. So that's a nifty little thing that big knights have in that towering rule. And other than that, in terms of how I'd play this game in particular, I mean, the blueberries have a lot of shooting units. So again, just use line of sights and terrain pieces to your advantage. You see there's this big line of sight down this way. So if this vehicle moved up to about here, then it could definitely see this Morkanaut. So maybe I want to move it a little bit over this way just to try and eliminate that line of sight. Same thing with down here. If this Reaper moves up to here, then it can see all the way down here. It can shoot at the Gorkanaut, the boys, the truck, the other truck back here. It can shoot any of this. So that is pretty dangerous if you're able to get a bit tucked in here with whatever movement you've got. I would definitely suggest that. But if you don't have enough movement and you are stuck back here, well, at least the saving grace for the lads is the blueberry had to move all the way up to here to be able to even see what we have down on our natural expansion objective, which could then mean for us on our turn that this Morkanaut could move up, advance, do whatever, end up about here and be able to charge it, or it could stay there and again the orcs inside of it, in this case the knobs, could hop out their 3, move their 6 inches, advance, and then charge afterwards. So what, 3-inch get out from a Morkanaut, 6-inch move, average of, we'll say 3 inches for an advance. So you're looking at 12 inches of movement out of a Gorkanaut. So on a wall, you could have a lad right there on just an average advance roll, and then boom, you're looking at a 6-inch charge, which is perfectly doable with your Gitz. So yeah, I won't simulate all of it, but that's some basic tips and tricks. Use the Gorkanauts as transports first until they deposit their units, or at the very least get up into the midboard to be able to charge into some unsuspecting Gitz, which is easier said than done, because again, they're big, hard to hide, and they only have an 8-inch move, so they are a little bit slow. But there's definitely some potential with them. At 265, they're very zogging cheap, so they do get singled out and killed rather quickly. Your opponent's still going to have to dedicate a large amount of firepower to drop one of these lads, so hopefully if that happens, your opponent hopefully needed to overexpose themselves to try to kill one of your big knights with a little bit too many of their resources, and hopefully you'll be able to capitalize off that. But yeah, that's all I got for you lads. Hope you enjoyed the video. Things in 40k are a little bit slow right now that the Drukhari Codex has come out, so all of the books in the edition are out, and with the new Space Marines that are about to come out, you know, the obligatory end of the edition Space Marines that have to release all the time, I don't really know what much else there is to look forward to in terms of 40k releases, at least for this edition. Now, we can pretty much guarantee that 11th edition is going to be next year, but until then, don't know what's going to happen, or what kind of news or exciting things there's going to be for 10th edition 40k. But I'm still going to try to make some videos, still having a good time with it, and we're about to hit 100 subscribers. By the time I get this video out, we might already be at 100 subscribers. I was thinking about doing something special as a celebration thing. I was thinking about maybe doing like an army showcase, show off the thousands of points of orcs that I've collected over my 10 years in playing this game. So let me know if you guys want to see something like that, or maybe something else, you know. I'm open to any ideas in terms of content and whatnot to try to spice things up. So yeah, let me know lads. As always, thanks for supporting the channel. I appreciate everything, really do. And yeah, that's been me, Daily Crumper, signing off.